I've said it before, I believe that sliders are the secret sauce to making your footage have a higher production value. I've been shooting over the past month on all different types of shoots with this slider, and I've been able to formulate a very good conclusion on it. I've thrown all different types of cameras on this, from my FX30 rig all the way down to the little ZV-1F. And if you're a real estate videographer, a nature documentary enthusiast, a YouTube video creator, into product video, or you just need someone to film yourself, but you don't have anyone to film yourself. I was even able to get some macro shots with the Sony 90mm macro lens f2.8, so pretty cool. Then you're gonna wanna look into purchasing a slider. Sliders allow you to get that linear tracking movement better than any gimbal or handheld shot that you'd ever be able to achieve. I've used the paper slider in the past, which is good, but it's limited to however tall your table or countertop is. And I've also used manual sliders, but nothing compares to a motorized slider like the Zeapon Micro 3. I've had the Micro 2 slider for almost a year and have used that on all different types of shoots. So I was super excited to get the Micro 3, pull it out of the box, see the differences, and see how much better the Micro 3 is than the Micro 2. Today, we're gonna talk about how to make your videos look more professional and cinematic using this particular slider, and what they have improved on since their last slider, the Micro 2. Today, on the Film Alliance. We're gonna talk about all the positives and negatives when it comes to using this slider and other sliders. But the first thing that I want to point out that's different from micro sliders to your old standard traditional sliders is this one only needs one tripod. While other more traditional sliders need two tripods, which means your setup time is doubled, and making sure the slider itself is level is an extra piece of workflow that you don't need to do with these type of sliders. Now, although Zeapon is not paying me to make this video, they did send me the Micro 3 slider for free and asked me to make a review video for it, but they're not reviewing the video before I post it online and didn't give me any talking points. They just sent it to me and asked me to give an honest review. Sliders are one of my favorite pieces of gear because they keep your camera in a linear movement while keeping your camera completely vertically still, if that makes any sense. If I tried to bend over and get a slider shot with my arm, you would see the up and down movements of the camera, and also you would see the tilt axis going up and down on the camera, whereas sliders just give you a nice still shot. One of my favorite things about this slider is you can remove the motor to go into a manual push mode, which means if you forget your battery at home or your battery runs out and you're out in the field, you can just easily remove the motor without any tools and then be able to do manual push slides. It's also great for traveling. You can take it apart to make it a more smaller form factor and be able to travel with it without it being so bulky in your bag. Also, manual pushes are nice because it gives you the ability to have a more controlled slide on the actual motor itself. You have 3 preset speeds, 1, 2, and 3. 3 being the fastest, 1 being the slowest, and sometimes the 1 being the slowest isn't slow enough, and sometimes 3 isn't fast enough. A lot of these shots with the four-wheeler, I wanted to go a little bit faster than the fastest speed on the preset, so that would have been a great time for me to take the motor off and do a manual push at a little faster of a rate. It also has a tension adjustment adapter, so you can adjust the amount of tension that you get while you're pushing it. That way you have a more evenly keeled push and you're not dependent on your unstable hand push. One thing that's different about the Micro 3 slider compared to the Micro 2 is you can manually set your AB points on the slider without having to go through the app. I hated the fact that I had to go through an app to set my AB points on the Micro 2 slider because at the time I did not have a smartphone. All I had was the light phone because I was trying to break my habit from using a smartphone, which I still am, by the way. So if you don't have a smartphone, then you couldn't set the AB points. Well, now you can do it manually. And I wish that all of these camera companies would make their camera gear be completely dependent with inside the gear itself and not with a smartphone, because that assumes people have smartphones, but there are a few of us that are trying to break that habit and just go old school with a flip phone. When I used to set the Micro 2 slider up on a tripod, sometimes the weight of the camera and the motor of the Micro 2 would be too heavy on one side and then the entire slider would tilt. But thankfully with the Micro 3, they sent tripod support arms, 2 of them, so you can hook them to the bottom of the quarter mount throughs underneath the slider and then hook them up to your tripod. That way you have 100% stability and you don't have to worry about the slider tipping over once it gets to the outsides. When you have the slider set up vertically, it can push 9 pounds worth of camera up and down the slider, and if it's horizontally, then you can push up to 26 pounds. I don't know how heavy my FX30 rig was, but it was definitely handling it very easily. This is by far the best micro slider that I've ever used, especially for what I use it for, filming myself out in the field, or even using it for different client shoots, doing real estate videography or product videos. This slider comes in 3 different sizes, 23 inches, 30 inches, and 42 inches. This one's the 23 inch and the other 2 are on back order, but if I had my choice, I'd probably go with the 30 millimeter just to give me a little bit more room before I run out of space to slide. Now don't get me wrong, that 23 inches is plenty enough slide space, but I just like to have that extra little room in case I didn't get the shot that I wanted. But with everything positive, there's always some negatives. Now, I don't think that this slider in particular has any negatives that would affect me, but don't get this slider if you want to use it for interview talking head shots, because the motor is pretty loud. I think if they were to upgrade the motor to a brushless motor and make it a lot quieter to where you could use it for interview settings, then the price of the slider itself would go up. So I think that they found the perfect medium between this is more of a B-roll camera or a camera that you can go out and you don't have to actually listen to the audio of the camera. Whatever audio you'll be using will be external or maybe sound effects, or you can even put voice over it like I've been doing for this entire video. Another problem that I find, not with just this slider, but really any slider, is the camera's lens stays fixed in one direction. Whereas a lot of times for these slider type shots, I would like to have kind of like a parallax, where the camera itself will kind of turn as the slider moves past. That way you're being able to see the subject in a 3-dimensional space, not just in a linear line. Now they do sell an extra accessory called the Pons PT that does hone in on your subject and stay tracking on it, kind of like the DJI Osmo Pocket, but it does cost a pretty penny. I think if someone is heavy into product videography, then that's when they should invest in this Pons PT system to lock on to your parallax subject. But if you're like me and you're just out in the field, maybe you could use a gimbal tracking system like I used for the Weebill 3, or you could just put a tripod head on the top and be able to manually turn the camera as the camera slides. Now, I did find that as long as you have a very nice tripod head, then you'd be good. But if you don't, then you're gonna see the footage kind of shaky and unusable. So I wanted to tell you guys about this slider because it is by far my favorite slider I've ever used. And going forward, when I use it in my videos and people ask which slider I use, I'm gonna point them back to this video. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, have a nice week. I believe that sliders are the secret sauce to having, I've said it before, I believe sliders are the secret sauce to making your footage have a higher productive, to making your footage have a higher, making your footage have a high production value.